Cool. That's at your end, the recording in progress. So, Maggie, before we start asking you and grilling you some questions, I just want to set up the scene with our authors here. We've also got Andrew Stark. I'm going to call him a discographer, but he is in fact an author, and Martin Tracy, author, and Maggie Doon, of course. Can I remind everybody, by the way, obviously we've got our mics on just now, but can we mute them until the questions and answers? I'm going to start to set up the scene with a question to Andrew. Do you like being called Andrew or Andy?
You can call me anything you like, so long as it's reasonably polite. I don't mind.
Cool. So, tell us more about this library of discographies.
Well, I mean, I'm a big music buff and have been since I was a kid. And I started trying to use some of that knowledge just to do a small handful of discographies of my favorite artists. And I got into a row with Amazon. We'd done about 20 at that stage. And they suddenly turned around and said, "Oh, I've got copyright issues with all the, the covers and everything." I said, "How does anybody ever do a discography?" So I set out, being a lawyer, I set out for them chapter and verse of the American law on fair use, and all of the other things that relate to copyright and promotion and photographic law and all that stuff. And they came back, and I've actually won. And that's so unique. But they not only won, they came back and said, "We do notice that over the 3 years that these have been out there selling quite well, do you want to do some more?" So I said, "Well, actually, yeah, okay. How many did you have in mind?" They said, "Well, you've got 20 or so. Be good to see a series expand to maybe 200 titles." So that's what I'm trying to do. Up to 130 at the moment. But we owe this one to Martin, because Martin, having done a couple of Beatles-related titles for me, or with me, insisted that we do Fuzzbox. And I was very skeptical because I wasn't really that familiar with their music at the time. Sorry, Maggie. And I said, "Is there enough material actually there to do a minimum 24-page book, which is the minimum size of an Amazon book?" And Martin said, "I'm damn sure there is. And in any event, I know Maggie, and we'll interview her. So we'll have an interview on the back. So whatever happens, we'll have 24 pages. And lo and behold, yes, we have." So thank you, Martin. Yeah. And I learned, I always listen as we're working. I always listen to the music of the people that we're writing about. And it was an absolute privilege and eye-opener to hear really Fuzzbox for the first time. I'd heard the odd track, but not the range of what you've done. It's great.
What I really love is the term, I think I've come across it during looking at the book, coffee table book, which is that's great, a great little term. And is that what you're stretching out and then specializing in, sort of like these?
Yeah, I mean, this is my retirement project, because I'd written a couple of novels and some poetry, and I started publishing books for Lee and one or two other people. And found that I had a lot of people wanting me to publish because they just couldn't get published. And I had the systems there, and we've ended up with about 700 books now. A large chunk of them, we've got the discographies. We do a lot of photographic books as well, and a lot of poetry, because poets really struggle to get published. And then probably about 100, 120, what you would regard as traditional fiction or non-fiction books. Yeah, the coffee table side of it is nice because it's comparatively easy to compile them. You've got a bit of creativity in terms of writing about the people that you like, but there is a routine and the stuff that's got to be in there. And what you hopefully end up with is a book that looks quite colourful and will operate as a reminder to people who maybe really like an artist but haven't got everything they've ever done. And we've been lucky with people like Martin. I've been able to find some really good co-authors who are really interested. A guy I've just been working with on a biography of Rush, and he's an absolute fanatic, and he knows more about them than I know about what I had for breakfast. And Martin's a bit like that as well, I have to say. Sorry, it's true.
I'm going to direct this next question to Martin. What made you get involved with, and in particular, a Fuzzbox? Why a Fuzzbox book? Now, when I say why a Fuzzbox, I don't mean why a Fuzzbox. I don't mean that. I mean you actually did a Fuzzbox book. So
yeah.
Did you get involved?
I mean, it was a no-brainer for me to get involved with the discographies because music was my first love before writing novels, etc. Playing keyboards, playing in bands, very much like Maggie, although Maggie obviously had a lot more success than I had it. But so once I started writing and the discography project was around, thanks to Andrew, I thought, well, yeah, I'll snap his arm off with this. George Michael, John Lennon, two classic ones. People who know me, I'm a bit of an anorak about them two particular artists. But then I started to think about, well, what else could I do? There's obviously the Birmingham connection, and Birmingham's got quite a good history of bands. So I'd done Black Sabbath. And it struck me that I'd started to engage with Maggie on Facebook and knew she was a bit of a good laugh. If you see any of her posts, she's actually quite a good laugh and quite a good down-to-earth person. And I'd already knew about Fuzzbox anyway. I knew there was a Birmingham band. And I thought, you know what, I think doing Fuzzbox would be good. One, because I think it offers as an artist, offers something a little bit different to other people. And I knew that writing it would be fun, enjoyable sort of journey in writing it. Because what part of the discography is, although we compile all the records that have been released, we also do a compiler's note. So that's quite personal to you, what the artist you're writing about means to you. And then a bit of a short biography with it. So that was why, really. I thought it would be fun. I thought there'll be plenty of colour jumping out, colour literally in terms of the imagery that Andrew sources and puts in the book, but colour jumping out from the words as well, just because of kind of the nature that Fuzzbox were all about, really.
Maggie, what do you think of this discography? It's not just a discography, it's a book, isn't it? Because there's a biog and an interview with your good self.
Yeah. It's just on a very, very sort of personal level, it's such a joy for me to sort of have somebody recognize our work. We as a band are the only female artists to ever have an independent #1 in the whole of the independent charts as a female playing band. And, you know, sort of, I think, and this might sound immodest, and I hope it's not, but I just think we get overlooked sometimes. You know, sort of that there hasn't been another independent or girl band playing band to get a #1 in the indie charts is really sad. You know, so having this as like a little like, oh, here's a compendium of our work, it's lovely. It's really, really lovely.
Brilliant. Just a reminder to everyone, can you just remember to mute your mics on the floor, because I can hear a few voices coming through there. Just have a look if your mics are muted. Next question, Maggie. Where did the very unusual name, and I actually know the answer, to be honest with you, when I first heard it back in the 80s, where did the very unusual name of the band come from?
Absolutely true story. We formed on a Sunday afternoon, rehearsed in the basement of my flat, and got the number 50 bus to our gig where we were supporting an artist, a band that I knew a member of, and you know, it was just supposed to be a joke, and it was a joke. But when we got there, we were so unprepared, we didn't even have a name. And they came in and said, "What's your name?" And I just said, "We've got a Fuzzbox and we're going to use it," because we had a Fuzzbox and we used it.
Yeah, I believe Putin's starting a band. I've got a nuke and I'm going to use it. Oh, sorry.
Oh, really?
Let's keep it. Let's keep it.
Gate. He could get his own ideas.
Tell you what, you know, it really hit me right on the head in the 80s when you came about with that name. And it seemed a fashion evolved after it, with bands having a sentence for a name. You know, we've got a Fuzzbox and we're going to use it. Pop will eat itself. Tears for Fears. And I think I subconsciously got, because I used to have a band called Music for Aborigines. So it's like getting a little sentence for a name. So thanks for that. Right. What do you think? I mean, what is your finest achievement as a Fuzzbox member? Now, listen, I think the fact that you've been on top of the pops no less than 8 times, that's wow. But what do you think is your finest achievement as a Fuzzbox member?
Getting through the sexual politics of the 1980s, and coming out winning to some degree. People look at somebody like Jimmy Savile, who we met, and who actually sexually assaulted Victoria, but people don't understand how difficult it was for us. We were literally chased around by children's TV presenters trying to grab us. You know, so if all of this stuff, you know, we were regularly, you know, today, if some of the behaviours that were given, that we received, were now, people would be being arrested. And I'm not joking, I'm laughing, but it's not funny. And you know, so if it was horrific, some of the stuff, absolutely horrific. So I think, you know, the fact, and also you mentioned our name, but we've got a Fuzzbox and we're going to use it on children's TV. I think it's hilarious. But, yeah, so that's what I would say our greatest achievements were.
I'm going to start a band called We've Got a Wah Wah, and we're going to use it, but it'll end up being a mank band, you know. Mank dance band. Now,
well, yeah, I'll introduce you to Mike Bennett, who's produced the last Fuzzbox album. He's a Manchester bloke, and yeah, he loves a bit of like what.
Yeah, cool. Now, what is the funniest memory? I'm sure it wasn't that last one you just pointed out.
No.
But what was your funniest memory as a Fuzzbox member?
Oh gosh, there's a couple. I think one of my favourites was we were in Japan on tour, and one of our band members, not me, got thrush, and we were trying to explain this to the interpreter, and who was Japanese, and she was like really struggling. And then so we were just like, we're in a restaurant or something, and all of a sudden it occurred to her what it was, and she just went, "Ah, flush!" It was just like, oh right, okay. But
it actually sounds like advice. my youngest daughter, she's autistic and regularly sits on the toilet and flushes the chain all the time. I don't know if that's what she's doing, sorting out thrush.
Well, I'm autistic as well. So, you know, sort of.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very different for girls.
I think you know, obviously, you know, I knew the band in the 80s, and obviously one does a bit of research when you're asked to front a thing like this. And I think I came across somewhere where you were saying, I don't know if it was as a result of lockdown, but where you're not too keen on going out there, you know,
No.
and people looking up your nose and things
No.
like that.
No. I find performing quite distressing, and you know, so I don't like crowds, but I love music. So there's this, you know, sort of this kind of like compromise within myself, that in order to do what I love, I have to accept what I don't. And but I think sometimes that can sort of be positive, because, you know, sort of I'm not, it's not all about me, if you understand what I mean. I'm not, you know, I'm a Madonna kind of character. So it's about, you know, what largely what I've got to say, and you know, sort of my music.
You see that, you know, I have to identify with that, because at one time, and I still am, you never stop being a musician. I was a musician, but the most favourite part of the process of being a musician was being in the studio and being creative. I've been in bands, and I've been stood on stage on extensive tours and look around at the other band members, and are they still enjoying this? You know, we've done this night after night. I want to be in the studio and creating. You know, that's and it's bounded over. You may or may not know, but I'm an actor now, and the reason I suppose I didn't really specialize in theatre is I enjoy the creative process in the studio, performing a sequence, a scene, getting it in the can and never doing it again. You know, that's my thing, you know. I think it's time to open up the floor to our extensive audience here. Plus, let's have a look at what's happening in the chat. And I think Martin's going to help us with that.
I can do, yeah. If Donna's happy for me to do so. She stuck the thumbs up. So I think I've got the gig. Right. So warm welcome from Helen. Hello, Helen. Helen Blakencop's with us. So questions. First one from Ian W. Maggie, what is your personal career defining memory or anecdote across the years of Fuzzbox?
Oh my gosh, that's so broad, isn't it? I think, you know, sort of, as was mentioned, getting on top of the pops, and, you know, sort of something that, and it's my sister's 10th anniversary this year. It's coming up soon on the 26th of October. And so obviously sort of being in a band with somebody that you've lost will always be an enduring memory, won't it? And, you know, sort of I've got that forever. And, you know, sort of, and I think that I know it sounds, you know, sort of like a bit hippy drippy, but I've got all of those things that, you know, I can refer to. I don't just have to remember her, you know, so people post stuff and, you know, sort of, and it's enduring, and, you know, I feel so lucky to have that.
Thank you. Really good answer for that. Thank you. So Claire's been busy because she's done a couple of questions, but her first one is for Maggie. Can you tell us a couple of moments that stand out for you as real highlights of the band's time? I think you may have half answered that with Andy, but I don't know if there's anything more you want to add.
I can tell you, sort of the thing that two things that I remember most. First was getting the call from John Peel to be in session, because as a young woman, I was like fanatical about, you know, John Peel, and to actually get on, and then and then we got in the festive 50. It was like, oh my god. And Glastonbury.
That would have been awesome.
I would have liked a piece of that.
It was absolutely amazing. Victoria had no, because what people fail to remember sometimes is how young the girls were. I was in my 20s, but they were teenagers. They were like 16, and they got to play Glastonbury.
Wow. I've done the Tamworth Rock Festival once. That's nowhere near it, is it? From Sarah S. Maggie's favourite Fuzzbox song, please.
Rules and Regulations.
I know that. Claire, I really like this question. Have any of you ever met anyone you were looking forward to meeting and been disappointed as they were not as nice as you expected?
Do you know, it's one of the weirdest things in, sort of fame and what have you. The people that you think you're like, quite often you don't. It's an act, that it's a persona that they've got. So I've met many people that I was very disappointed in. But then it's wonderful when you meet people and they surprise you at how lovely they are. And yeah, I couldn't pick on one person specifically because unfortunately there's been so many.
Wow. Next question is from Chris. Any Rocking with Rita memories? Looked like a good day out filming the video. And I think, Chris, you were actually putting up some sort of footage on the screen.
Just the comment on rules and regulations. We got it here.
Oh, I love it.
And I really like this. I really like this disc because I don't know if you remember this, but the I don't know if I'll be able to.
The scratching.
It's the etched one. Yeah.
Yeah. You know why that was? We didn't have enough material. But instead of making it a negative thing, I think we turned that into a positive by having this. It's a work of art, in my opinion.
Absolutely one of my prized possessions in my record collection. So.
And do you know, not only is it work of art, but that influenced one of the managers of the Spice Girls. And the reason that they had Scary Spice, Sporty Spice, whatever, was that because we had those little cartoons of ourselves and just, I was witch. They used that as a template to name the Spice Girls.
Wow.
Should have copyrighted it, Maggie. Should have copyrighted them.
If only I'd have been sensible and young.
Yeah.
Just derailed my own question, didn't I, about Rocking with Rita?
Yeah, Rocking with Rita. What's that all about then? Memories of that, Maggie.
Well, obviously, we were discovered by Rob Lloyd, and so it was our, so we did a single together, and it was the first time I'd ever been to Blackpool, actually, and so we did the video there, and we did a tour, and so it was really successful, and that's another great memory actually, was we were talking about people that you meet that disappoint, but then there was one journalist, I can't remember his name, who came along to the gig in London, and he met us and realised that we weren't stupid and that we were actually quite funny and clever and entertaining, and he actually published an apology. I'm so sorry for Fuzzbox, which was really good.
That's a triumph.
Great.
People talking about people you've met. Did Ade Edmondson get involved in some of your videos, Maggie?
That's right. Yeah, he did. He did International Rescue. Yeah.
Was
So-
he was in the
He
video?
was in it. Yeah. He was Duran Duran in our video.
Yeah.
Not the band, the character, obviously. But yeah. So he did that, and he again. So he'd never worked with an all-female band, and didn't realise how long it took for women to get ready. He was really annoyed, but it was funny.
Brilliant. Next question from Dawn Torrens. Hello, Dawn. How did you find performing in America?
Oh, wow. That was quite the culture shock, because you think you know America from the TV, but you really, really don't. And when you think about it sensibly, it's a vast country made up of some states are bigger than, sort of England probably. And each are culturally very, very different. So, sort of, I preferred the states that had my favorite place was Chicago, because there's a marriage, and I think it's because I come from a city very much like it. It's an industrial city, sort of and I'm very proud of my working class heritage, and I enjoyed that more than, say, LA, which, I mean, LA was fabulous in a way that, sort of, it was really incredible how la it really, really is, sort of, it's not real, a lot of it, and I enjoyed that. And it's almost proud that it was fake, and sort of that was funny, but I couldn't deal with it day to day. I don't think I couldn't live with that. Chicago was definitely my favorite.
Next question from Helen Blenkinsop. Maggie, what kept you going when you faced challenges in the less than PC music industry?
The joy that we knew that we could be the most irritating people on the planet. And we used to love being annoying. So people would, instead of getting angry, we'd just annoy people. And we were really good at it.
Was there something in, because you were a unit, there was 4 of you. I always think of people like Elvis, who was a phenomenal talent, but he was on his own. And when George Michael even split from Wham, he found it difficult on his own. Do you think there was something you could rely on each other as a unit and proverbially put the 2 fingers up and things like that?
Okay, this is a complicated one, because I found touring, and this comes with autism, I found touring sometimes difficult, and I would get annoyed quite a lot. When you're living with somebody 24/7, the reality, and also hormonally, we'd all have it's not true that women think, right? It's not true. And so there'd be at least, sort of 1 to 3 days a month where I'd just hate everybody. But that said, if somebody attacked one of us in any way, the unit would just be cohesive, and they would regret having done anything horrible. We would be so together. And so my sister was extremely quick-witted and cutting, and the rest of us as well, you know, sort of we were funny women. We were funny. So yeah, it's difficult.
Okay, a couple of recollections rather than questions here. Oh, sorry, hadn't you finished, Maggie? I
No,
thought
no,
you
I
finished.
finished. Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
have you still got more to say, Maggie? All right, cool. So Darren saw you in Southampton and loved the big keyboard intro that actually came out as a foghorn. So he was very pleased to be in the audience that night. Helen says her brother saw you at Glastonbury, and she's always been very jealous of that. I am also very jealous personally that I didn't see that as well. Leah's asked, did you ever get asked recently, didn't you used to be in Fuzzbox? Does anyone ever say to you that sort of question? As you're walking around Sainsbury's or whatever it is, or the supermarkets are available.
It happens very occasionally. But you know, sort of one of the things that I loved about having my hair in curls in the 80s, it was extensions, but I would let it, I would have it straight out of Fuzzbox. And people would often say to me, do you know who you look like? And I go,
brilliant. Brilliant. Rich PC says, Maggie, is it true you're working on music and where can we buy this new book? Well, we'll tell you about how to buy the new book at the end of the interview. Stick around for that, Rich. But the first part of the answer, are you working on new music? Maggie?
I'm got a side project called Black Clown. And we've got our first proper shows in December. And it's very different from Fuzzbox, but I am doing a few Fuzzbox songs, so if you come along to any of those gigs, I have no idea where they are because I'm half-wit, but I will be posting them on Facebook, and we'll have our page up, so if you want to sort of know what I'm doing, that's it. It's quite dark, and I'm working with a brilliant girl called Jenny Tingle and one of my best friends, Justin Walker, who's a fabulous guitarist. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Final question, and there is Ian's put in a nice little paragraph for you to read in your own time, I think, Maggie, just in the interest of time. But Sarah, last question from Sarah S. Did you come from a musical family, and who inspired you and Joe growing up?
Oh, right. Okay. It wasn't, my dad loved singing, and it's my biggest regret that I didn't have him and his mates support us on a tour, because it would have just been fantastic. But music was very much at home. So always listened to sort of the radio, and coming from an Irish family, we had Irish music quite a lot in, you know, sort of played in our home. So I was never, from an early age, I wasn't just like pop, it was across the board. And then my sister wanted to learn the piano, and I was sent along because we were poor. It was cheaper for my parents to pay for me to go to the music lessons so that they could go to work and I could look after my sister, than it was to, you know, sort of do for them to take time off work to do that. But as it turned out, I was a natural at the piano, and a natural, again, with a lot of musicians are autistic, because we like patterns and we like repetition. It's some, you know, if you're autistic, you're set up for arpeggios and scales. You love it. You love doing it. And I loved the theory. I loved, you know, the patterns, you know, sort of, it was really comforting to me. And I found something that I didn't know, because back then girls apparently didn't have autism, but we did, but it presents differently. So for me, music was an amazing therapy. It was something that, you know, I could do that was enjoyable and soothed part of the autism that I have. So basically, I did really, really well. Jo didn't. She found herself when she got a guitar. But I did really well, and you know, so that's why I got sort of classical music in my repertoire. But interestingly, because Jo was self-taught on the guitar, the number of people, like big up guitarists, that would come over when, you know, we were performing and would say to Jo, "I love your style." It was incredible. I mean, big up people, you know, so would just admire. We were recording at Genetic, Martin Rushent's studio, and Dave Wakeling's band, the General Public? They took Jo over into their studio to play guitar. It was the rest of us are just going,
Wow.
This is a joke, isn't
Brilliant.
it? It's a joke. But no, they loved it. They loved the naive quality that she had, and the sort of the way that she played between tones as well. So she just naturally would, because it was her own, she would play between notes. So yeah.
Excellent. Okay, I'll just before I hand back to Andy, then I should make a reference. This long paragraph that Ian's put in. So I don't know if you know this, Maggie. You are responsible for at least one marriage, because the single Pink Sunshine, it brought him and his current wife, who he met all the way back at Pink Sunshine days. They're still together today, and that's how they got together, on the back of Pink Sunshine. So well done, Maggie, for being such a good matchmaker there with Ian and his wife, Jane. Over to you, Andy.
Stories like that. And you know, one of the great joys of being in a band, because so you put the music out there, but you don't often find out until some you know, people will randomly contact you saying, oh, you know, one of, you know, things, oh, this song, you know, I was feeling suicidal, and then I put Pink Sunshine on, and all of a sudden, and this is an actual story, and all of a sudden I just thought, actually no, you know, sort of it made me happy, and I'm just like, oh my god, you know, it's that powerful. It really, really is. You know, so, stories like, you know, sort of your music got me through when I was a young woman, because I you know, felt so different and alone, but then I looked at you lot, and you know, sort of it got me through, and it's just amazing.
Maggie, this isn't so much a question as a commendation. Your version of Walking on Thin Ice is staggering. The production,
I agree.
The production is brilliant. And
oh well, you were
did.
talking about Rush earlier, one of the contributors, and our producer Andy Richards was actually in Rush. So, and it's Andy Richards that did that. And in fact, the video for that, I always joked that if ever I've had children, right, I'd just burn every single image of me ever and just go, that's what I look like every day. That's just how I work. Yeah.
But you're right in championing a great song. You know, I mean, Yoko often comes the butt of, you know,
yeah.
I'll look at the Chuck Berry video where he's going like about screaming in the background when John and joined Chuck Berry, but that is such a cool song. And when I watched your version of it, which that video and the production is, and Vix's performance is,
Yeah.
it made me look at the Yoko Ono video, which is really cool. It's really a cool video, isn't it?
But again, you know, sort of Yoko is seen as some sort of disaster, isn't she?
Yeah.
But she was a successful conceptual artist, and you know, so if some of the stuff that she's done, have you heard her dance albums? They're
I have heard bits.
absolutely incredible. She was doing crossover dance before anybody else. She's an amazing artist.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and when you think she must have given rise to artists like Polystyrene and obviously the B-52s, you know, that they were influenced by her.
Mm.
I think sadly when she dies there'll be a revision of Yoko.
Yeah.
And her work and her contribution to for female artists.
Yeah.
You know, sort of I've always loved her, always loved her. I think she's exceptional. And it's sad. I just think, you know, if she was a bloke, it would have been different. But I think she's incredible. Absolutely incredible. You know, Bjork, there's a link directly in my mind between Bjork and Yoko. You can see that sort of wonderful bonkersness, you know, sort of the way that Bjork is not only a musical artist, but a visual artist.
Yeah.
Her latest single is just incredible. All of that, you know, morphing into being almost like a sea creature. That's from Yoko. That's, you know, so you can see the line.
Celebrated a lot more, that's for sure. You know, there are, you know, you're going to have that, you know, that you're going to have that camp who think that she, I mean, the people accuse her of splitting up the Beatles, don't they? You know?
I mean, as if it's ridiculous. It's laughable.
Maggie, you may not know, I work semi-regularly over at Emmerdale. Now, an actor over there who works there a lot more than me, Dominic Brunt, has asked me to pass on his regards. He was a big fan. He is a big fan, and he said, say hello to you. And he came over to me when I was there last week and spent ages telling me, naming off every song, you know, and I'd just been researching.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really, really lovely. I'm afraid I don't watch Emmerdale. I know it's a farm.
Not anymore. It's more than the farm.
Has it moved on?
Yeah, they've got glasses of wine and nice cottages. You know.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, glasses of wine. I'm in there.
So when I watch it, I'm always reaching for the gin, and you know, it's like nice lifestyle, nice environment. I'm going to just, if I may, Maggie, I'm just going to bat over a little question to Martin, the author of and Andrew, the author. Martin, music features a lot in your. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So as I said, writing does feature a lot of my writing. Obviously, discographies are a classic example of that, but my fictional work as well. There's the Judge Stone series, and the second book in particular, Club 27, that explores, which Maggie has a copy of, actually. I don't know if she's read it. But that explores that phenomenon of the 27 Club, where it just felt like a good thing to weave a story around the age 27. All these pop stars, unfortunately, lost their lives. Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones, Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, it does seem a bit of a strange phenomenon. And as I said, I just weaved the second Judd Stone novel around that. And music, Judd Stone as well, like myself, is and like you, Andy, is a big Beatles, John Lennon fan. So I can play out a lot of my own thoughts and feelings through Judd as a character. Although if you read the books, you'll see he's actually nothing like me in terms of being a character. He's a bit of an anti-hero. And then standalone book, Things They'll Never See. That is about an 80s rock star who struggles in the 90s. It's set in the 90s, actually. He struggles in the 90s to make it as a solo artist. And he buys a haunted house in the Peak District, but actually gets some inspiration from the haunted house that he buys. And you'll have to read the book to see how that finishes. And then the current, you've got that copy book, haven't you, Andy? Yeah, and the current book that I'm writing is number 4 in the Judd Stone series, and that is called Double Fantasy, which we've already spoke about. Yoko's Walking on Thin Ice. It was certainly part of the recordings when John's final album, wasn't it? Double Fantasy. So I've took that title, and I do this a lot. I take song titles and make them titles of chapters and things like that. Yeah, music will always be a part. Someone actually come, which I thought was really, really nice. Someone come to me and says, "You write musical thrillers, don't you?" And I'd never thought of that concept or that genre. And I thought, oh, I actually quite like that. I'm going to use that. Musical thrillers, I like that. I'm not sure there's many of them around. So, yeah, music will always play a part in my life.
So I think we've had this question posed by one of the floor members. Where can we find these discographies, and particularly the Fuzzbox one?
Yeah, Andrew might want to come in after me, but I can certainly point you in the immediate direction, because about the whole library of discographies, as I said, that they're kind of Andrew's baby, and he's done a wonderful job in coordinating all of that, and obviously authored some himself. You will find all of them, including the Fuzzbox one, on Amazon. If you want to find my other books, they are also on Amazon, strange enough. Just put in Martin Tracy and they should come up. I've got an Amazon author page. I have a website as well, which is quite easy to remember, www.martintracy.co.uk. There is a mechanism for you to contact me through that. Like it sends me an email. So we could arrange for a small fee on top, thinking about packaging and all that, a signed copy if you wanted that, and try and get Andrew, putting Andrew and Maggie in the frame. Maybe they could even put a signature on. We'll see how we can do that. But either directly through me or Amazon is the most obvious way. Andrew, do you want to come in and add anything to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, people say, I've said it myself, actually, some quite negative things about Amazon from time to time. But the truth is that their print on demand and their ebook platforms, Kindle, and the access to it without having to go through a mainstream publisher makes it possible to do stuff like this. Because no mainstream publisher is going to touch this stuff. They're just not interested because they're not going to make enough sales. These are not mass selling things. But to have the opportunity through Amazon to do projects like, oddly enough, we're working on Yoko Ono at the moment, and somebody told me it won't sell. I don't care. I love Yoko Ono, and I think that a book on her and her work is long overdue. Same with Martin's advocacy for Maggie and Fuzzbox. He sat there and convinced me that it was worth doing. And when I looked at the music, he was absolutely right. And none of that could happen without Amazon. So these titles are unique to Amazon. They are there. You can buy a Kindle ebook version, or you can buy a print-on-demand version. Martin and I, obviously, we advance buy, so we've got some stock. My website is andrewsparke.com. So again, I can order them for you, or almost. And as Martin said, we're really happy to organise signed copies. Same goes if you're interested. If there's 130 titles in the series now. Lee Benson over there is responsible for half a dozen of them. So if you're into the Groundhogs or Alice Cooper or Supertramp, Lee will sign a book for you as well. And of course, if you want to come and see us, all 4 or 5 of us are doing a really big author signing event at the Council House in Birmingham this July. I think it's the 16th, isn't it? Saturday, the
15th, I think. 15th.
Saturday, the 15th of July, 2023, from 10 till 4. There are about 90 authors signed up to go. Several I see of you actually on this page. I can see the names. But obviously, Martin will be there to sign books. I'll be there. Lee will be there. And delighted if you just want to come and talk to any of us. It's great. And if you've got a book and you're interested, you just want somebody to help you with it, that's what we're for.
And you can find us on the socials. I should have said that. Twitter and Facebook. I mean, Facebook has been a wonderful thing to connect me and Maggie, and also for to push out the messaging around this event happening, even though that it was obviously through Eventbrite. But yeah, so you'll find us on the socials. We don't bite. If you want to, if you want to message us or anything, or send a friend request, just go for it. Always happy to hear from you.
Well, I think that basically closes our hour with your good selves and Maggie. Honestly, it's brilliant to meet all of you. And I think where we can get the discographies from has been covered. I was about to introduce that, but I think you guys just covered that. Thanks very much for coming on board, Maggie, Andrew, and Martin.
Pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy. It's been a pleasure having you do it for us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Great stuff.
Thanks. Great to see you all. Thank you, everyone. And thanks, Andy. And thanks, Maggie. And thanks, everyone.
Good night, then, folks. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.